Hello there, and welcome to the Break the Bias series of Time to Shine. This is your host, Rukhsar Sayed, and today our special guest is Mr. Dan Mathews. Dan is an expert public speaker on topics of the natural and universal laws, thought, and goal setting. He holds a BA degree and he holds a degree in physics with focus on optics, electromagnetic fields, and mathematics. He also earned a master's degree in marine biology. Dan's research work includes physics, polymer chemistry, and ocean ecology. One of the Dan's three published books, Self-Help Jesus, was a first international bestseller on Amazon. Welcome, Dan, on my show, and it is a true pleasure. It is a true honor to have you on my show here.
Thank you, Rukhsar. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to these next few minutes. Thank you so much. And
That's
thank
great.
you for everything.
Yes. So, Dan, as many of the works revolve around, a connection between the laws of science and laws of personal development. So, can you elaborate how these two aspects are correlated with each other, and how it will help for a person to develop his personality or his well-being?
The two areas have always been connected. But about 400 years ago in Europe, the main researchers in the two areas, Isaac Newton and René Descartes, thought that there was a separation between the science of the physical world and the science of the spiritual world, and they stopped studying the spiritual laws and just focused on the natural laws. And from that developed chemistry and physics and the natural sciences, what were called the natural sciences then. And what they didn't understand was the same laws are universal laws. The laws that they were discovering in science were universal laws which also applied to spiritual development. But that area of spiritual development was taken over by religious people, by the theologians. And they developed their own area, their own philosophy based on what they felt was true. But the reality is the spiritual laws, the universal laws are universal. They cover the physical world and the spiritual world. And so when you talk about personal development or spiritual development, you still have cause and effect. You still have energy moving in waves. You still have all of the laws that govern the natural world. You still plant seeds in a spiritual way with your communication. You plant seeds into the minds and hearts of other people, and those seeds grow just like seeds in a garden. And it's a wonderful thing that now we're starting to see that the two are really connected. It's not two different worlds, it's one world. There are two aspects to it, one of which we can measure and predict in the physical sciences, and one which we have to have faith, we have to have trust, we have to have belief that there is a higher power, an intelligent higher power that has created all things. And those things follow the same laws as the laws of the natural world.
That's so deep, and you have explained it so easily, this concept. So moving on, Dan, you have a breakthrough teaching series also on YouTube, The Physics of Faith, and you help students develop the knowledge of physics through these series. So what is all this about, and how many episodes have you completed these series?
The Physics of Faith program is a program that has 12 parts to it. So there are 12 lessons.
Okay.
Like many other personal development programs, but it really focuses on the universal laws and not just the spiritual laws. So that if I talk about how when you're trying to grow spiritually, you run into barriers. the barriers you run into spiritually, whether it's fear or discouragement or whatever it happens to be, where you feel like you're not making progress, you're following exactly the same path as water flowing in a stream down a hill that runs into rocks. But it never sees the rocks as an obstacle. It's just an opportunity to take another path. And the path that we think with our logic, with our human logic, our human mind, is never the correct path. It's never the easiest path.
Yes.
And if we're trying to get from where we are now to where we want to be, it's never a straight line. It's always a path that goes this direction.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's like a stream flowing downhill that's trying to get to its source, the ocean. It comes from rain, it flows downhill, it ends back at its source, the ocean. We're doing the same thing exactly with our spiritual lives.
Yes. So in this way, nature is also connected with the humans as a certain extent, because as you said, the path is not straight. It is in a zigzag way, and there are lots of hurdles, there are lots of obstacles between. So I think that at a larger extent, nature is incorporating in humans' life.
Nature follows the same laws because it doesn't have the problems of having to think.
Yes.
It just follows the laws naturally. We have our conscious analytical mind, which has produced all the wonderful things in the world around us. But
Exactly.
it hinders us from making the correct decisions because we put too much faith in our logic. And you have to put the logic aside and just go by trust.
Exactly. So, Dan, you have written 3 books, and one of them, that is Self-Help Jesus, is one of the best first international bestseller on Amazon. So, can you give us some insight about this book and what was the topic?
Well, really, the topic is the same. It's the same topic. It's the same story.
Okay.
But what I realized was that the natural laws, the laws of physics and chemistry and biology, the laws of science, and the spiritual laws, the laws of personal development, were really understood by the great masters of the past, by the Prophet Muhammad, by Jesus, by Buddha, all of the leaders, all of the people who began the great religions of the world, all understood that these laws were connected. And they taught those laws. Jesus and the prophet both spoke in parables. They talked about the natural world, but they were talking about spiritual things. And it's just a continuation of that story.
That's wonderful. So, Dan, what are, according to you, the 3 universal laws of personal development? Any 3 universal laws?
Well, there are more than 3. There are I talk about 7 spiritual laws in the book Self-Help Jesus. Some people who teach personal development have 15 laws. But if I were to take the top 3, I would say the overarching umbrella that covers them all is the statement, I am. When Abraham first spoke to Allah, to God, the message he got was, I am. And that was God's description, Allah's description of himself to Abraham. And today we say energy is in science. We don't know what energy is, but we know that it's always been here. It will always be here. It penetrates the entire universe. It's in every particle, every cell of your body, and it's infinite, never changes, and it is intelligent. It has the ability to think and bring information to you, to me, to anybody, because that's the nature of energy. And the physicists, the scientists agree that that's the nature of energy. It never changes, but it's always moving and changing form. And it's within every one of us. So I would say the first is I am, that energy is. The second is that it travels, it carries information, it carries truth in the form of waves, which means that energy is always vibrating, or it's always moving. It's always, and it can travel instantaneously because it's the power of thought. It travels instantaneously from one point to another. And really, those two are the two primary laws, or the primary ideas. And the third one I would say is the quote that we've heard in all religions that says, "The kingdom of heaven is within you."
Exactly.
And everything else comes from those three.
That's truly wonderful. Dan, if we talk about self-development, what advice would you like to give to our listeners on, on self-development? How can they develop internally, as well as, how can they develop their confidence building too?
The thing I would say that would be, if I had to say one thing, I would say, once you have developed, once a thought has come to you and it becomes an idea, and you take it in your heart with desire, and it becomes a goal for you, and it doesn't matter what that goal is, but when you have that thought that comes to you, it becomes an idea, desire makes it a goal. The mistake that people make is they focus their attention on the goal.
Yes.
But what you have to do, and this is the great secret of all of it, what you have to do is imagine that you've already achieved the goal. You can travel through time. You can travel through time. You've done it today. You've looked to the future. This morning,
Yes.
earlier in the day, you were looking to this meeting. You were in the future saying, how is that going to, you were imagining what it was like. You had traveled to the future in your imagination. When you make a mistake, you have an argument with someone, you travel to the past and you relive that experience. And to your body and to your mind, to your subconscious mind, that's real. You've traveled to the past, and that you've brought up that experience and relived it. You travel through time all the time, but we think we can't travel through time. You and I are traveling through time right now because of technology.
Yes, exactly.
We're 10,000 miles apart.
Yes.
And talking to each other as if we're in the same room. We can travel through time. But imagine that you've achieved the goal, and then focus on the feeling, how good you feel having the goal achieved. Focus your attention on the feeling of having achieved the goal. That's the secret.
That's wonderful. Dan, further, if we talk about goal setting, teenagers now, especially school-going students, because of this, we are living in this post-pandemic era, and still we are in that, a scenario in most of the parts of the country. So students are getting affected at a large extent because they are not able to go to school, and they have to switch on to the online mode, which affects their way of studying. It affects their way of developing their knowledge. In this way, negatively, indirectly, their goal setting strategies are also being affected. So what is your advice, how to develop this strategy, how to be focused enough to set our goals?
One thing I would say is to not be too dependent on the structure that you're living in, whether you're living in luxury, whether you're living in poverty, whether people focus on why things can't happen. Change the focus to how things can happen. And that may mean you have to have a little bit more determination and persistence in studying. You have to actually read a book. But there are a lot of online resources too. But how can I move forward? Don't look at why you can't, because you'll never make any progress. All you see is barriers. Instead of seeing barriers, see alternate paths.
Exactly. That's great, Dan. It was nice having a conversation with you. It was nice discussing such, deeper concept and understanding it. And today, I must say that I have learned a lot. I have understood a lot of concept in this session, and it is beneficial, truly beneficial for me. And I hope for my listeners also, it will be equally beneficial. And thank you so much for joining once again out of your busy schedule, and you have, agreed to do this show. So I'm very grateful to you.
I'm grateful to be here, Rukhsar. This is really a pleasure. And from opposite ends of the world, I don't think we could be much farther apart than we are between you and I.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to the next time.
Yes, same here. And thank you once again. Thanks for joining.
Thanks so much. Thank you.